Both of these are the same Rolex DateJust 36 with the same slate colored dial, but they look totally different in character. In today's video, we'll find out how to transform the DateJust based on the choice of configurations. Just talking about the dial for now, the slate color is exactly the same on both of these watches, and it has that same sunray finish, which gives it those wedge-shaped reflections. But the look is vastly different based on the choice of the hour markers, whether it's the stick hour markers versus the Roman numeral hour markers outlined in that nice green color. The stick dial design is kind of the basic standard dial design of the Rolex DateJust. It's a little bit more simple and more minimal. The Roman numerals on the Wimbledon dial give it a little bit more complexity and give it a little bit more visual interest, and that makes it look like the dial is just slightly more busy. And there's also that added pop of color. While the Roman numerals are actually black, they're outlined in this bright green color, and it gives it that overall look that the Roman numerals are a dark green color. And still, even though they're coated in this colorway, the Roman numeral hours are still gold, so they won't tarnish over time either. The outer chapter ring is also different. The two-tone model has those simple hashtags, whereas the Wimbledon dial has numbers along the outer chapter ring. So overall, the dial design of the two-tone model is a little bit more simple, more elegant, and more refined, whereas the dial design of the Wimbledon dial, it's more complex in nature, a little bit more visually interesting, and I would say a little bit more sporty. The options for configuration come down to the choice of metals, whether it's steel and yellow gold, steel and rose gold, Rolex or oyster steel. And the choice of bezel is either the smooth bezel or fluted bezel. And the choice of bracelet comes down to the Jubilee bracelet or the oyster bracelet. The internal movement is the same, and the design of the oyster case is also exactly the same. It has that nice restrained case design, and I like that they went back to the nice tapered, elegant lugs of the current model. The selection of two-tone rose gold brings about the greatest price difference and also the biggest difference in opinion. It tends to divide people into whether they just love it or whether they hate it. I'm kind of in the middle and leaning towards a little bit more towards loving it. Selecting the two-tone option gives you a full rose gold bezel, the full solid center links in rose gold, and the rose gold screw down crown, and the hour markers are also outlined in rose gold. So these hour markers won't tarnish over time, and there's also the application of a rose gold Rolex crown at 12 o'clock. Two-tone rose gold gives the DateJust more refinement and more elegance, and gives an overall warmer look to the watch. Some people might think that two-tone is old-fashioned or for an old man's watch, but the old-school look is what gives it some appeal to me. And other people might think that two-tone is making a comeback. The addition of the extra gold also gives it a little bit more weight and heft on the watch and feels a little bit more reassuring on the wrist. The option of steel also has its benefits. It's a more modest watch, it's more subtle and doesn't stand out as much, and it's more affordable. It feels very lightweight on the wrist, and sometimes I just forget that I'm wearing this watch. This steel configuration feels a little more versatile to me. I feel like I can wear it on more occasions without attracting any attention. The choice of bracelet not only affects the look of the watch, but it affects the feel of the watch on the wrist. The oyster bracelet gives a little bit more sturdiness to the watch, feels more solidly built, and it's a little bit less flashy. The Jubilee bracelet feels more lightweight on the wrist, it's more slinky, and it conforms better to a smaller wrist, but it is slightly more formal than the oyster bracelet. The flat links of the oyster bracelet tend to show scratches more easily, whereas the Jubilee bracelet has those curved links and they tend to hide scratches. The choice of bracelet also tends to tone up or tone down the level of formality of the watch. So the oyster bracelet on the yellow gold two-tone, it tends to tone down the flashiness of the gold. It makes it slightly more sporty and more for everyday use. And the opposite happens with the Jubilee bracelet. On this steel version, it adds a little bit more complexity and more visual interest and slightly increases the level of formality, making it a slightly more dress watch. The choice of the Jubilee bracelet will add slightly to the cost of the watch, but I think it's negligible compared to the benefits you get from the Jubilee bracelet. The choice of bezel also greatly changes the look of the watch. The fluted bezel on this model really catches the light and catches the reflections and brings more attention to the watch, makes it more flashy and more formal. The smooth bezel is more subtle. It doesn't catch as much reflections, and it tones down the formality of the watch, and it looks more sporty compared to the fluted bezel. So basically we have opposite configurations of these two watches: the smooth bezel and fluted bezel, Jubilee bracelet and oyster bracelet, full steel, and two-tone rose gold. So which is the better watch overall? As far as price, the Wimbledon Dial Steel DateJust comes in at $7,500. It's slightly over the baseline version with the oyster bracelet, but it's still modest, especially considered Rolex pricing. And the two-tone model on the right comes in at $11,650 at retail, which is substantially more than the steel version. And on the secondary market, the Wimbledon Dial is slightly above retail, and I would say the two-tone is slightly below retail. So overall, is the two-tone watch worth the 50% premium in price over the steel version? The Wimbledon Dial is a very attractive dial, and that's reflected in its popularity. It's a little bit more difficult to find this at retail, and the secondary market price is slightly above retail. The monotone look of the steel and the gray dial gives it a little bit more versatility, but it still has that pop of color with the green Roman numerals. But overall, I feel like this watch is more versatile, and I can wear it with more outfits and in more situations without catching attention. It's lighter weight than the two-tone version, and the Jubilee bracelet is slightly more comfortable, and the weight just disappears on your wrist. But for me, the winner is this two-tone DateJust in rose gold. The addition of rose gold just adds that extra refinement and elegance and warmth to the watch, and the gold adds that extra weight, which is reassuring on the wrist. As I get older, I feel like I appreciate the addition of gold more and more, and I think I'll get even more attracted to this watch over time. The oyster bracelet brings down the level of formality slightly, and I think it'll be more durable over time and hold up better and have less bracelet stretch over time. Let me know in the comments what your winner is given the price difference, and also if price was no object.